Get started with the study meeting. If you can please take your seats. We will begin tonight's study meeting of May 8th of 2023 with the offering of the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Kathleen McIntyre. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. Again, welcome to the study meeting of May 8th, 2023. This meeting will set the agenda for the 1969th regular meeting, which will be on Monday, May 22nd of 2023. If you would like to participate in any of the agendas this evening, we would ask you to approach the podium on either side of the room. When that item is called, you will then be asked to speak when the time is appropriate. We do not have any council absences tonight, so we have a full council. And I'll note that we do have new data on item number 4. With that being said, we will start the meeting off with audience communication. Is there anybody here in the audience who would like to address the council on any item not on the agenda? We've set aside 30 minutes. Come on up here. Any audience member can have up to 3 minutes to address us. Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Ian Edgar. This is Eric, one of my coworkers. And we are here to represent Anastasia and Katie's Coffee Shop and Cafe. We are located at 19215 Merriman Road, north of 7 Mile, on the west side of Merriman, next to Angel Saints and stuff. We are a 501c3 nonprofit on a mission to create employment for people with disabilities. We would like to remind everyone of our upcoming car show fundraiser, Saturday, May 20th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., located in our parking lot. We will have classic and sports cars, music, and the cafe will be open. And we will also have a raffle and 50-50. The event is free to the public, and we are asking $20 from each car participant. We are up to 21 cars, but have room for 50. So please register at myworkmatters.org or the day of the event. Eric and I would like to remind you at Anastasia and Katie's Coffee Shop. Eric?
Good and strong.
Yep.
Good and strong.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job.
Any questions?
No, just thank, Mr. Jolly. I just wanted to thank 2 of the best baristas from Anastasia and Katie's. All the baristas are great. Ian and Eric for being here, and we're glad you came to this meeting because at the 7 o'clock meeting, Mr. Morgan reminded us about the car show, but you gave us a lot more information than he did, so we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job, gentlemen. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address the council? Going once, going twice? Okay, we will close audience communication. We'll go to council communication. Anything that needs to be said by the council? Ms. McIntyre?
I have just a question, and I guess I'll ask Mr. Bernier. So, for most of my years on council, we would have someone from the administration here, and I mean, certainly Mr. Bernier's from the administration, as are all the department heads. But we would generally have, at that time, it was known as the Director of Administrative Services, and then when we reshuffled, or the mayor reshuffled department heads, and then we had a Director of Governmental Affairs, and that person would attend the council meetings, and that was our liaison, our formal liaison back to the mayor's office. So I guess through the chair, Mr. Jolly, I'd just like to ask Mr. Bernier, so Paul, are you now the unofficial liaison back to the administration?
No, I mean, I do report what happens, so I guess for that respect, it's unofficial. But I know, for instance, Mr. Vargas is watching tonight on TV, so he's seeing everything that's going on.
Okay.
I had that conversation with him earlier, and he told me he was gonna be watching it on the television. So I know he's watching it, and every department head that has an issue that is up, they will also report back. So is there somebody who is designated right now? No.
Okay, because when things are referred generally to the administration, right, that generally means,
Right.
I mean, and we do, the department heads are here for their issues, and we know that if they hear things that are referred to their departments, they pick up on them. But when we have general things like the bus drivers, right, that really needs to get referred back to the mayor's office to work with transportation, so, all right.
And I know the mayor's aware of those issues, as is Mr. Varga, because we spoke on it today, on the issues that were up for tonight.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If there's nothing else from the council, we'll jump right into the agenda. New business, item number 1 is a request to barricade city streets from Patty Novak of the Christadelphians Church on Van Road between Levan and Raleigh, Monday, August 7th, 2023, until Friday, August 11th, 2023, 8:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. each day, in order to host a vacation Bible school. Is there anybody here on this item? Oh, good evening. I didn't look quick enough. Good evening, ma'am. Your name and address, please.
My name is Patty O'Brien Novak, and my address is 15586 Nola Circle, Livonia, Michigan, 48154.
Thank you, ma'am. So this is a request coming from you to operate the Vacation Bible School. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about that?
Well, we've been doing it for several years. We've requested the barricade, and you've been very gracious in granting us that request. And I have a map here I can maybe pass around this way that shows where the barricade request is. It would be partway through Van Court Street over to Raleigh, which becomes Parkdale Street. I can pass these down if
Yeah, that's no problem.
you'd like one. And what it is our church is located on the south side of Van Court. We also have a large field on the north side of Van Court. And during VBS, we have activities on the north side, such as maybe sports and games where the kids can run around. And we would really like to have the street barricaded so that we don't have traffic going back and forth on Van Court. It keeps our kids much safer and makes it a lot more fun for everyone to be able to enjoy that time together. It is just in the morning, and in the past few years, we've been putting the barricades up around 8:45 in the morning, and we've been removing them around 1:15 in the afternoon.
Mr.
Perfect.
Chair,
Mr. Barr?
we've approved this many times in the past. Happy to offer approving for consent again if there's no objection.
Okay, is there any audience comment on item 1? Okay, you have an approving for consent. It means you don't have to come back for the regular. It's all but assured to pass.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 2 is a block party coming from Sylvia Kissick and Jackie Gordon to be held on June 10th, 2023, from 4 to 10 p.m. on Arden Street between Elmira and Orange Lawn, with no rain date. Good evening. Your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Sylvia Kissick, and I live at 11028 Arden Street in Livonia. And we are looking to barricade part of the block between Elmira and Orange Lawn on Arden Street from 11028 Arden north to Elmira. And all surrounding neighbors will be invited. Music will end by 10 p.m. and we're looking to have a bounce house for the kids and use this as a community building activity within our neighborhood.
Is this the first block party you've had?
No.
Okay. Any motion from the council? Ms. Toy?
I'll offer an approving. They've done this before, and
Yes.
seems like you have a good time.
Okay, is that for
We do.
consent?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any audience comments on item number 2? I see none. You're also all set. You do not have to come back for the regular. Your item's all but assured to pass.
Okay, and then a quick question for the barricades. Do we pick those up the Friday before at DPW?
Mr. McCullough will deliver them for you.
I will.
No,
Just let me know what time.
You looked excited. Normally people are like, I don't want him to come
I was taking you up on
around.
that. I didn't know if you were
Tell me
kidding.
what time.
Yeah, you do have to work with DPW to pick them up.
Okay, all right. Well,
Thanks.
thanks again, Mr. McCullough, but.
Yeah.
Not a problem. I'm there if you need me.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Item number 3 is also a block party coming to us from Nicholas Scott to be held July 2nd, 2023, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Ohio Street between Maryland and California with no rain date. Is Mr. Scott here, Nicholas Scott? Can I have a motion from the council to put this
President.
on the regular? Go ahead, Mr. Donovan.
I'd like to offer an approving for the regular to give the resident opportunity, so long as the council office can send a notification to him.
Okay. So we have that motion. If there's no comment from the audience, that's what we use as kind of a placeholder, because we like the people to appear before us so they can explain to us why they want to do what they're requesting. We'll move on to item number 4, a request to waive the city's noise ordinance coming from Wafa Barshini, the festival chairperson at the Basilica of St. Mary Antiochian Orthodox Church, in order to host a festival from Thursday, August 10th, 2023 through Sunday, August 13th, 2023, in the rear parking lot of 18100 Merriman Road. I'll note that we do have new data on this item, an email coming from a resident who abuts the property or is located near the property. I'm going to hand the gavel to Vice President Toy, and I'm going to recuse myself from this matter. Although I do not do any work for St. Mary's, I work for a law firm that does. And to avoid the appearance of impropriety, I will be standing down on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
My name is Wafi Barshini, 40627 Delta Drive, Northville, Michigan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Freddie Sackler. Nice to see you all this year. 18100 Merriman Road, Livonia, Michigan. Wafi is going to field most of the questions, but I'm here to help.
Okay. Take it away.
Take it away.
Yeah, we're looking for to waive the city noise ordinance for this year. We've been doing this festival on a smaller scale in the past 2 years, and we're here just to waive the noise ordinance and do whatever required from the neighbor to, make this happen.
What time? Can you give us
It's
an idea?
Thursday and Friday from 5 to 11, Saturday from 12 to 12, and Sunday from 12 to 10.
Okay. I'm going to take questions from the council unless you have anything else to add.
That's it.
Anything?
No, we'll field the questions. And
Perfect. Councilman Bach.
First, a question through the chair to Mr. Bernier. Can you remind me, if we were to not waive this noise ordinance, they'd be allowed to play this music till when?
Arguably, they wouldn't be allowed to play it at all,
period, yeah.
because the noise ordinance, when you talk about amplified music, it's a prohibited act under our ordinance. So if you didn't waive it at all, you could put whatever conditions you want on your waiver, but if you don't waive it, they arguably are going to be violating the noise ordinance. And the time is irrelevant because the noise will carry over to the neighbors.
So, thank you. So I know we've approved this a number of times in the past. We've gotten a lot of complaints from neighbors in the last couple of years about this, which is particularly startling to me considering the distance that's between your where the bulk of this happens and the residents that abut that property. It's not like they're right on top of it. You have any response to that?
Of course. So, I did this for many years, 14 years on my own. And we used to set up on Bryant Park with permission from the school. And it was carnival rides and things like that to that nature. And every person has to pass something on to the people they love that are their kids. And in the end, Wafi and his group have now tried to run with it. And the largest difference and the big reason for the change in the complaints, because we had them in the beginning and we worked with everyone, is we moved from the Bryant Park, which was the street running south along, closest south of the church, and the people in the back. And we got to know all of them, and they got used to the sign, and we'd visit them all the time, and we built relationships with them. Then, when they moved to the church parking lot, now we're close to the north subdivision. And those are people that haven't had that relationship of 15 years to build. So last year we came in with several complaints, and we said, you know what, I didn't get it, because I was sitting here, and the guy's like, you've never come to my neighborhood. I didn't understand it. And I said, we went out in the hall and we talked, and he was correct. And last year I went to that neighborhood in a golf cart with my wife and my kids, and we went to every house and we gave them cards with their cell phone numbers on it. We also redirected the speakers so they weren't the same as the first year. And we brought in a sound engineer with a decibel meter at 2 different points at the festival. I'll tell you that, you know, we all have, and the only way I can analogize this is we all have children, right? And you teach them things, but you have to let them learn a little. And I know and you're looking at this as a 20-year event where you should have worked out your kinks, but really it's a 2-year event. And I think that the church is trying its best, like always, to do the best they can for the community. So I would tell you that, you know, we never, and I don't know if there's anyone here this year.
Just keep it right to this council member.
No, I don't know if there's anyone here this year, but we've always tried our best to work with the community, and we care about our neighbors. So I would just ask you to, you know, understand that there's always kinks in the system, but we've done a lot to improve the process.
So I appreciate that, and I believe you're sincere when you say that. But the fact is, we're getting a lot of complaints this year about what happened last year. Now, was that, I mean, what was that last year, or is that people taking longer than 1 year and thinking it was last year, which could naturally happen? I don't know. I just, taking the information that's provided to us, my email, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, my email has been flooded with complaints from residents about what happened last year. And so I'm really struggling this time to how we can in good faith approve the same ordinance or the same noise waiver when we're getting that level of complaint.
I would only tell you this, right? Everyone gets noise ordinance issues. And I know that there's other things going on between the church and trying to get things done and accomplished. And I know there's this fuel, right, for, that needs to be calmed. But typically the festival has never had, from what you're explaining to me, is significantly more than I've ever heard in the 18 years of doing this and watching them. I was on site last year. So I don't know if some of those complaints are coming from anxiety for other issues, but I would tell you that, you know, as every church in this community who's been here this long, who is there for the schools when they do their graduations and there for the community centers when they do their things and gives back to the community. I mean, a 4-day festival, you know, for these hours, I would just say email everybody back my cell number and tell them to sit down with me and we can figure it out. I mean, there was a time, and I know one of the biggest individuals that always felt, Freddie, I'm strong and I'm frustrated about the church. His name is Jeff, and he lives in the subdivision behind. In the beginning of the festival, we became friends. And I haven't seen him in years now. But my point being is, I think that all of these types of problems related, if they're genuinely related to the festival, can be resolved.
So, and I applaud your efforts to go meet the neighbors. I mean, with housing developments, et cetera, that's always a good idea. It's just always good for people to communicate and just talk face to face. So I encourage you to keep doing that.
Just so you know, I was actually brought in one of the neighbors, so it's not every neighbor, remember, actually said, hey, my son was with me in the golf cart, I need to go potty, and brought my kid into their house to use the restroom. So I mean, it's not all, remember
So
that.
I'll wait and see if some of my colleagues have anything else or any other questions on this. But as far as getting out your cell phone number, I honestly don't know. I see a number of people in the audience tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some of those neighbors here tonight. And if they are, I guess you may have a chance to connect with them right here. But I'll yield the floor to see if anyone else has any additional comments.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilman. Go right ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Vice President Toy. To Mr. Bernier, well, thanks to the petitioners for being here tonight. Thank you. To Mr. Bernier, City Attorney, when we talk about sound and we talk about 11 o'clock, I know that we had a committee meeting specifically with the festivals that St. Mary's holds, and that was last year, I believe. It was a nice, or in general, about noise in the community and special events. When they say they're asking for one of the nights is 11 o'clock, how do we enforce or how do we stipulate that even though that the music is supposed to stop at 11 o'clock, we all know that when the music stops at 11 o'clock, people still keep hanging around and the noise continues all night long. Where, you know, if you go out at all and music stops at 2 a.m., they usually shut off at 1:30, give people the time to start leaving, right? So how do we as a community kind of police that or say, hey, you know, it's 11 o'clock, the music's supposed to stop, but you need to stop it at 10:30 so that by the time it's 11 o'clock, there's not as much sound bothering the community and the residents nearby?
Well, enforcement's always the issue, but I think you nailed it on the head. If If you as a council state that it ends at 10:30, so actually people clear out 11, then that's the issue. And then if they go beyond the 10:30, then that's enforcement, and they can be cited for that, which quite frankly is a misdemeanor criminal offense if they violate the ordinance, the sound ordinance. So you can, as a council, put on whatever conditions you want. You could put on, you could demand which way the stage faces, the sound level of it, the times. That's up to the council's wise decision coming in as a group. So it's, you have many tools at your disposal, but of course it always comes down to enforcement.
And thank you, Mr. Bernier, because at that committee meeting, we talked about enforcement, and that was the difficult part for the ordinance department, is it's not really realistic sometimes for them to enforce or hear what's happening at 11 o'clock at night, or get a good gauge of what those sound decibels are from the property line, because these individuals typically work business hours and they're not working until 11 o'clock at night. So to the petitioner, Mr. Bernier kind of touched on that. I'm looking at the map that you provided to us and the stage, and I remember at that committee meeting, we talked about the positioning of the stage and positioning of the speakers. One second, please. So are you planning to, for the tent, right now it's facing east, and my question for the assembly tent and the stage looks like it's pointing east, so I'm assuming all that, the direction of that noise will be headed east and to the north to where it seems like a majority of the residents are complaining. And are you able to readjust that stage, or maybe point those speakers inwardly so that you can help limit the noise? Because I'll be very truthful with you, I want to see you move forward with this event. I want your congregation to get together. I know in the past you've invited residents, and it's always been a big gathering, and I want you to be able to do your event, but at the same time, the residents also have good points, and the music, while we grant it till 11 o'clock, the music, from what we've been told from residents, will traditionally go past that time frame. So can you shed some light on the stage positioning? Does the assembly tent have some sort of plastic that comes down to help buffer some of that sound, and what the stage positioning and whatnot?
So it's a little, first of all, the map in front of you is wrong. That was the proposed map for last year. We actually made changes last year and implemented them. The actual music sits on the north, on the north side of the tent, speakers facing south. The original festival used to be on Bryant Park, and they used to sit in the exact same direction, which now we're even further away from those neighbors that run that stretch. So we figured the ordinance, the city requested last year that it was wrong in the wording, but face north towards the church. So we faced them north. We put the speakers on the north and faced them south. That's where it stands. Second, we put walls up on the side of the tent, facing on two sides of the tent. So the side of the tent facing on the north side of the tent, on the west side of the tent. We could probably add a wall to the south side of the tent, which would, in addition, solve that problem. Again, I will tell you that in the past, we were larger, and we rebirthed it, but we used to use police officers from the city of Livonia, and we used to use our own private security. I'll tell you that normally, loving all the neighbors keeping me on watch, because Jeff was good at it, if we were approved to 11, at 11:01, there was 20 calls. He would call 10 times. And Freddie, I'm watching you. So I would tell you that the policing, if music's on after that time, that we usually don't have that problem. We did 1 year, 2 years ago, and we did 1 year, maybe 10 years before that. But the solution to that is we will, if the city council is okay with it, we will bring in a paid reserve Livonia officer to ensure that when the festival music goes off, the area clears, combined with our security. I know the Livonia officers don't want to engage, so we have our own private security, but what will happen is they will be there in presence in the evenings for the last couple hours of every night, combined with our security to make sure that the crowd disperses when the music shuts down.
Thank you. Well, I'll just ask that you can provide us a new map to accurately depict the new layout. And just for the record, I don't want to limit, you got to have a fun time. You have to have a good event. I don't want you putting walls all around the tent, because that kind of defeats the purpose. You want to have fun and engage and whatnot. So I'm not here to be the fun police, but, we have got a lot of concerns from residents, and I think it'd behoove you to do your very best to make sure that the speakers are pointed as far away from the residents as possible so that they can enjoy their peace and quiet, and you and your church can enjoy the fun time, because it's a great time there. I've been there, and it's a blast. So I just asked if you can please give us a more accurate layout before the next meeting so that we all can vote.
100%. And we thank the community. We know it's no one's perfect scenario, but it's, for every good, there's, nothing comes, there's no perfect scenario when you throw something like this in a subdivision or in a neighborhood.
We've got some other comments. Councilman, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair to the petitioner, you brought up the fact that you had decibel instruments that were measuring the decibels.
Yes.
Do you remember what the decibel level you were trying to stay?
120.
So just to let you know that 120 is almost double what they say for excessive noise. It should be 70.
This is inside the tent.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. This was inside the actual tent,
But they even say that as it carries, even if it's 70 decibels at the speaker, even carrying 100 feet could be 60. And so a lot of the complaints that we're getting are a lot about bass,
Fair.
noise, rattling windows. And if you're at 120, that's going to carry.
yeah.
So, I mean, like literally looking at different things, the industry standard says for excessive noise is 70 decibels. If I may, through the chair
Go right
to Mr. Bernier, am I within means to assess a decibel level?
Absolutely. If that's what the council wants, yes, absolutely. Now, understand, I do want to point out that the decibel levels really, under the ordinance, aren't a concern. It is a prohibited act to amplify music and send it across property lines. The decibel levels is instructive when it comes to other activities, so it does give us a good idea what is a proper level. But just amplifying music so it goes over and creates a noise disturbance on other people's property is a violation, no matter what the decibel level is. But that's within the purview of council. If you want to limit the amount of noise, you could, instead of midnight, 11 o'clock, you can lower the decibel level. You can put in the conditions you want, because it's council that is issuing the permit to violate, so to speak, the noise ordinance.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, listen, you guys have been a good partner in the community for a long time, and we're not trying, as my colleague said, to be the fun police, but we also need to be good stewards around the neighborhood as well. For that, I will put a motion on the floor for regular of an improving with the stipulations that at 11 p.m., the decibel at the property line goes down to 60 decibels.
We'll be off by that time.
Well, on Friday.
Sir, wait a minute, let's
Not
let
yet,
the
not yet.
council,
Wait.
And then
Give their
on top of
opinions.
that too,
Yeah.
during the event, the other stipulation would be is that at the property line, the music at the property line to the neighbors doesn't exceed 70 decibels.
okay, that's your motion, all
Correct.
right?
So
Okay,
60 after 11, 70 during the event.
during the event, okay.
Thank you.
Councilwoman McIntyre, thank you.
I know that we use decibels to measure sound. How do you measure bass? And I'm not being funny, right? Because a lot of the complaints have to do with the vibrations and the shaking of the houses, right? And I know from my own experience, right, as a resident and neighbors, that the volume is one thing, but the thing that's really jarring and disruptive is that boom, boom, when you literally feel your house shake. So how do we, and I'm guessing through the chair to Mr. Bernier, there's no way to objectively stipulate
I don't know enough
a
about.
base level.
Yeah. I don't know enough about how sound travels in order to do that, but I do agree with you, the bass tends to be the problem. That's what I've been reading too. I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. I'm not a sound engineer.
We need a sound engineer in the council.
Yeah. All set?
I am, I just wanted to ask that question. I don't know how to stipulate anything, because I don't know the objective measure of, it's all about the bass.
It's- what about the speakers you're using? I mean, is there a way to use some different speakers perhaps that don't blast the music as loud for these neighbors and yourselves? And, I mean, can you still hear?
I think,
yeah.
okay, you know, the thing is, first you all have to remember, right? I have a dad who's a Marine, but a Middle Eastern Marine, but he loves oldies music. You play oldies music, play it as loud as you want, he's happy. The minute someone puts on Middle Eastern music, his ears go, right? Because it is about the bass sometimes. And that's the problem with the music. It's the drums, it's the keyboard. So sometimes the vocals, you know, it's just not what someone wants to hear all the time, but it's what the community listens to. So it makes it difficult because it just makes it difficult.
Part of it,
So
okay.
please remember that. But with that said, yes, I mean, we can get on top of the sound engineers. We can bring down the decibels. I am not a sound engineer either, but 70 might seem a little, you know, maybe we started at 120, maybe we come down to, you know, 100. I don't know, but what I would ask is, anyone who's in the meeting tonight, come to the festival when we start or around the time, and let's sit down with the sound engineer and be fair to have a good event, but at the same token, so they have to hear it on site to know what it drags. Because if we go through the distance issue, the problem is there's a creek there. I don't know when, you know, some of those neighbors, I don't know where their property starts or doesn't. Do I do it from the creek? Do I do it not? So I think the better scenario is let's all meet on Thursday night at 7 o'clock and try to see if we can work it out amongst each other. I mean, that's what a community does, so that's what I'd offer.
No, yeah, and if that's realistic, I mean, I don't want to bring up bad stuff because I've been here too many times before. We had problems with the fireworks, if you recall, and we ended those.
We fixed them.
And you fixed them to a point, but that the neighbors have really, you know, like you mentioned this time, and Councilman Barr has mentioned and others, we're getting a lot of kinds of things coming at us. Have you outgrown the area, perhaps? I'm exploring this. I'm not advocating.
This area is new. You know, the parking lot is new. We were always on Bryant Park before. Maybe the answer is to go back to Bryant Park. You know, I mean, maybe that's the answer, right? Because we haven't had the problems we've had in the last 2 years while we were on Bryant Park.
Sure.
So maybe.
So maybe consider that?
Maybe for the future, you know, maybe that is the answer. You know, maybe if this year doesn't work out and we don't have you know, letters are letters, and I appreciate every neighbor, right? I could probably get you 300 letters that say, God bless St. Mary's. They've been kicking butt, you know? And it's just, but that doesn't take away from the people it's hurting. I'm not saying I want to, but I think we can do a decimal thing. We can go with your direction of how frustrated the community is, and we can see. And if it doesn't get where we all think it should be next year, then, you know, that's in your purview. We'll move it. We'll go back. I mean, I wouldn't want to see it end. And I'll tell you that the hours, and I know we're taking a lot of your time, the evening hours, unfortunately, for these types of events are the hours, you know, the majority of the revenue for the event comes between about 8:30 and 11 on a Friday, and about 7:30 and 12 o'clock on a Saturday. And unfortunately, that's when the event actually generates, and it becomes one of those events you can have. If you don't have those evening hours, it really destroys the event.
Okay, and we're here to work with you. I think everyone has said that. Go right ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Vice President Toy. To the petitioner's point about meeting with the residents, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think you should take that initiative, meet with the residents, but this council, in my opinion, can't vote on that, right? We have to vote on something specific, and I'll be supporting Councilman McCullough at the next meeting. I think he put a sound limitation on there. I think we have to, short of not approving, I think it's better to approve it at a lower volume to, one, help the residents and help you. So I think everyone needs to compromise, and I think council is maybe privy to supporting this and going to approve it. And I think you need to just take the volume limitations and have a successful event and let the residents have some peace and quiet and not hear that late at night. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you, Vice President Toy.
Councilman McCullough, would you repeat your motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the motion would be to 11 o'clock, the decibel limit would be 70. And then after that, for the remainder of the event till the midnight, would be 60. And putting it in context, we actually, doing some Googling, 110 is a rock concert, 120 is a siren, 140 is a jet engine taking off. I mean, these are, don't quote it, but as it gets closer away from the speakers, I'm putting a property line. So
If that's the
basically,
case, I'm happy with, I had no clue.
now
what
that's at the
numbers are.
property line. So, you could be in theory a little higher, but we just want to make sure that those residents, and it's going to be good stewards to the community as well.
Thank you. Councilwoman,
Could I, just to clarify, 'cause I want to make sure I understood it
sure.
correctly. The way I wrote it down, and make sure I'm right, it's an approving on the regular by Councilmember McCullough with the additional requirement that limits the sound to 60 decibels at the property line when the event ends and 70 decibels at the property line during the event.
Yes, let's go with yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman McIntyre has the floor.
Back to this issue about the base, and and Freddie, I really appreciate your comments, and, I've enjoyed this festival for many, many years. We can't, it's not, I don't think that it's, that the conditions, or it can be understood that, well, if it's not good this year, right, if it's miserable for the residents, then we'll change next year. My concern is nobody should have to move out of their house or feel like they need to get out. And again, it's really that shaking. And so, in my mind, and I'd like to know if this is a comfortable place for you, if any house, the closest house to the festival and to the source of the noise, if their windows are shaking, right, or there's any feeling of vibration in their home from the base, that base is too loud.
100%. You guys, I know I go with stories because it's years. There was a lady on one of the streets that had dogs. Her dogs, she called me and said, I have to move my dogs for the festival. I said, why do you have to move your dogs to the festival? And we solved that problem, right? So if things are happening and they come to the meeting, we can't fix them always until, it's hard to fix something afterwards. I hear what you're saying, and if someone's house is shaking, it shouldn't happen. So, and that kind lady, she was like, I'm Freddie, I'm gonna still move my dogs the following year. I mean, it was an issue that we had a direct phone call and we talked a lot about. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. So with that said, we are more than willing and always willing, but remember, this is a 2-year-old event. It isn't the original event. So please remember that.
Yep.
We will take care of it.
And I don't believe there's any way, through the chair to Mr. Bernier, there's not any way to really stipulate that.
I was trying to do a little research. I was looking at, there is a base measurement device.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
How it works and what it means, I don't know, but there is a device.
City engineer, I think that should be something that the city engineer knows how to do. Anyway, but it's important to me that the closest houses do not feel, and there's a difference between hearing noise and getting any of that, so.
I just talked to someone that handles a little bit of our sound, and we will reduce bass. I have no idea what it was last year. We will be able to reduce bass.
Okay. All set?
So I can't give you a figure, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
and I'm not, I'm just, you know where I'm coming from, right?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah, of course.
Is there
Thank you.
anyone else on the council before we go further into this with the audience? No? Okay, I'm going to turn to the audience and see if there's anyone from the audience. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We have one motion on the floor at the moment, and anyone from the audience wishing to comment on this? Good evening. State your name and address for the record, if you would, please.
Hi, I'm Michaela Kuzing. I live at 31098 Aubrey Street, and I live an acre away, roughly, because I live in a half-acre plot, and there's another one that got split into two from the event.
Okay.
And it shakes the house. And I know he mentioned, like, this is a 2-year event because they move locations. Well, I remember hating this event because it was so loud and so problematic when I was in high school about 8 years ago, roughly. And I have chronic migraines, so it's like, this is more annoying and distracting than my dad cutting the grass, which sets him off. And that's an acre away. and it's been loud, and I mean, I know they moved locations, so it was worse last year, but it's been a problem the entire time. There was one day that they broke down everything in the middle of the night, and you were up all night, and people are screaming, which is part of a carnival, but then you're hearing that and you're trying to fall asleep, and it's like, you got the noise from all the music, you got the screaming, it's just problematic, and it hasn't changed, it just got worse. House shaking, that's been happening for the entire duration of this event. And I live an acre away. There's 2 rows of houses in between me and the parking lot, that whole area. So,
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate that. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, anyone else before we leave this? Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't do public speaking very often, so this is
That's
a
all
lot
right.
for me.
Can you tell us your name and
Yes.
perhaps your address?
Christine Koss, and I live on Hillcrest Street, 17627. And my issue is the after parties in the trailers. I don't know if it's the carnival people that are working the fair, but this goes on till wee hours of the night. I actually thought there was a crime being committed one night because there was so much screaming.
So make sure
And
you
I'm-
kind of direct your comments this way, okay?
Sorry.
That's all right.
So that's my concern is it's just, it's an extension of things that happen, you know, as a result of the fair. It just doesn't get quiet. It's like ongoing. So that's just my concern. If you could talk to maybe the staff, I don't know if there's, I mean, it
Is that
has yet to
only-
be seen to happen.
Is that only from last year, or has it been in previous times?
Multiple years, as far as I can remember, actually. Yeah. And I've been very quiet about it, so.
Okay, appreciate you
That's
coming
all.
forward. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hi there. My name is Caitlin Belowitz. I live at 30528 Janine Street. My house doesn't back the field, but my home's kind of like adjacent to it. Taking that into consideration, my home is one of the homes that experiences the vibrating sensations during the festival. I moved into the neighborhood from the Downriver area, April of 2021, not aware of what I was about to experience with the festival, and it was a significant vibration. Like, we didn't fall asleep until past midnight on Saturday. I did end up calling the police, which they didn't assist. I think I called them around 11:30 just to reiterate the vibration that we were feeling in our homes, because that is an inescapable sound. You can close the windows when it's just someone playing normal music or singing, however you want to put it, but when the bass is taken into consideration, there like really is nowhere to go unless you leave your home in the middle of the night. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Yes.
So we actually left town last year to avoid the festival because of what we had experienced the year prior. And it was upsetting because we really didn't want to, but once we became aware that this was an annual thing, we had to work that weekend and we couldn't stay home. Me and my husband, we work weekends sometimes. So that was an issue, so we're just trying to prevent that from happening this year. And that's why I emailed City Council to say that I wanted this to be denied. Not because I don't want St. Mary's to have their festival, I do, but like, can we just tone back on the noise? I don't even want the days to be shortened, the hours, just cut back on the bass, cut back on the noise, and I just feel like there could be some compromise there. And then after hearing about, what Councilman McCullough, sorry, I'm new here. What you said about the decibels, that makes sense. And that's all that I'll say regarding that, and I just hope that that's enforced. And I just hope that also Livonia Police will choose to enforce it if that does become approved, because I hate to say it, but I will be calling if it becomes a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Dave Kuzing. I live at 31098 Roberts. You hear my daughter speak a little bit earlier on this subject. I've been a resident at that place for 30 years. It's an ongoing thing, but being a good neighbor is only a couple of days a week. However, I have medical issues now with my kids, with migraines and stuff like that. Literally, our windows vibrated in the house, the upper story windows, where the sound echoes even more than the main floor. sleeping area in our house is a colonial. The noise is very loud. I like this idea of the decibel metering. The property lines are probably a very good distinguishing, but this is a noise constraint. We haven't complained in the past as good neighbors, but with my daughter's not migraines and stuff like that, and then they have to work the next day on weekends, it's been very difficult. Last year was extremely loud. And the year before, it's been that way forever, so. But it is a fun festival. I go to the festival. I enjoy the festival. And I just wanted to put that out there. So, thank you.
for
And
coming
I
in.
like that idea of the 70 decibels. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in tonight. Okay. Alrighty. Council, we're gonna leave this matter to one motion, and I'm gonna pass the gavel back to President Jolly.
Thank you, Vice President Toy. We'll go to item number 5, a request to waive the city's noise ordinance from Reverend Constantine of St. Rafka Maronite Catholic Church in order to hold a cultural festival with music played by a DJ and live bands at St. Rafka Maronite Catholic Church at 32765 Linden Street, Friday, August 18th from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m., Saturday, August 19th from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m., and Sunday, August 20th from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Good evening, ma'am. Your name, please?
Hi, I'm Linda Curry. My address is 39065 Agenta Court, Sterling Heights, Michigan.
And you're here on behalf of St. Rafka?
Yes, I am the chairperson of the festival.
Okay, so we're familiar with this as well. Are there any plans this year that are different from years past?
Not really.
Okay. If there's anything else you want to tell us?
You don't have any complaints.
No, I don't know that we have, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I know that we asked for, and I did it for the mere reason that I understand what a lot of these people are saying. Although we asked for midnight to be our cutoff point, our time with the band that we pay them is till 11:30. That gives us a half an hour to clear people out, because I am the last person that leaves the church. So I have to make sure that everybody's gone and cleared, and before we move on. We don't have the ride issues, so we don't have the people in the trailers. We're there to have fun, listen to some music, play some bingo, sell some raffle tickets, gift shop, and eat a lot of ethnic food.
I heard Father Tony got a promotion of some sort.
He did. He's not in Michigan anymore. He's in Ohio.
Okay.
Thought of it that way either.
Mr. Barr?
I'll offer approving for consent if there's no objection.
Okay, I have an approving for consent. Is there any audience comment on number 5, the request from St. Rafka? Seeing none, you're all set. You do not have to come back to the next meeting. It's all but assured to pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Hope we see you guys there.
Item number 6 is a waiver use extension, petition 2022020203, submitted by Tissio Architects on behalf of Plymouth Auto Sales, requesting a 2-year extension of the waiver use granted on May 2nd of 2022. This would be for operation of a used auto dealership with repair facilities and outdoor display of vehicles at 36534 Plymouth Road, located on the north side of Plymouth Road between Levan and Market Street in the southwest quarter of Section 29. Good evening, sir. Your name and address, please.
Good evening. Julian Scheinlari, 50470 West Fellows Creek Court, Plymouth, Michigan.
Okay, what's your position with this?
I'm the owner of Plymouth Auto Sales.
Okay, why are you seeking the extension?
We purchased the property shortly after we had the approval of the waiver, shortly after that, the tenant that was there moved out, which was about June of 2022. We met with a few different contractors to try and kind of put our plan together about starting the parking lot, starting the project. We met with Nagel, we met with T-Berg. Our goal was to start with the parking lot first, because that's our most intensive work on the property. And they seemed to be 30, 40 jobs behind at the time. No one was even willing to put a number on it, and they just kind of, well, even if we do get a start on it, it won't be till fall, and then by that time it'll be too late, so it'll be next year. So after hearing that and hearing that the prices of all the materials were skyrocketing last year, they seem to have come down quite a bit from last year. We thought like, well, maybe we just start next year, and during this time we'll just rent the property out for a year. We had a few different offers. Most offers were 5 years and above. Just 1 year is not enough for a company to move in and start out on something. So we've found a entity that is currently renting the property. They want it at least 2 years. Well, we thought, you know, that's a great idea. That'll just push us away from this crazy pricing and stuff, and we'll start out after they move out, which is September of 2024.
Okay. I'll go to my colleagues. I'll just say real quick, everything you said in the beginning makes a whole lot of sense in terms of why to extend a project approval like this. Once you started saying that you are veering from the intended use currently, that's where it gets, you said you rented the property out to somebody else, so now you're looking at doing this potentially 2 years from now. That gets a little fuzzy for me personally. You don't have to comment on that. I'll go to my colleagues. Does anybody have anything to say in regards to this? Mr. Donovic?
Thanks, Mr. President. Thank you for being here tonight. I understand the issues you're having. It's ironic, I'm trying to repave a parking lot right now. It's been so difficult to get quotes. And when you do get a quote, there's a sticker shock there, and then they tell you it's gonna be 6 months before they can even come out and do the work. So I understand where you're coming from, and I know Ben Tissio is a really good architect in our community, and what he says he's gonna do, he ends up doing. And I know you guys are working hard to try to enhance this building. I also understand President Jolly's perspective. We can't just continue to push this down the road forever and ever. So I'll be in support of it. I'll offer an approving for the regular. But I think we also need to send the message that eventually something needs to be done here, but also trying to work with you as a business owner and trying to help meet both those needs, the city's needs and your needs as a private property owner. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. Tormina, is it common for us to grant a 2-year extension based on past practices? Or is there a time frame that we have done more common than not? I can recall doing a year extension. A 2-year extension seems a little outside the norm, from what I can recall.
It's unusual. You have, the council has approved 2-year extensions in limited cases where there's a good argument to do that. But the vast majority are single-year extensions.
But from your experience, and I'm just trying to find information, I don't know how I'm gonna vote yet, but when somebody says that they've kind of veered in the usage for the time being, rented the property to somebody else, it seems like there's two different things going on here. There's an improving, well, there's a past approved project. Now they're using it for something else, but they want to kind of keep that in the background.
Correct.
Because when we look at projects like this, we're looking at it from, we want to see the immediate improvement of the property for everybody who sees it and all this other kind of stuff. That's where my concern comes in.
And that was our goal, to start on it right away. It was a shock to me personally to hear that they were that far behind and not willing to give you any numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who's renting the property now?
It's Honey Bins. A new company.
I think I've seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, they're not doing anything with cars outside necessarily. They're utilizing the parking and stuff like that.
It's all it's all within the ordinance.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Mr. Tormina. So right now, we obviously, this would extend the approval on the site plan, which means that if we extended it for 2 years, the petitioner does not have to come back to council, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any motions from the council?
Yeah.
Oh, you have one on the floor already? Okay, is there any audience comment on this item? Okay, was it, oh, go ahead.
I have a question. And the part that I'm just not clear on is why this requires a 2-year and not a 1 year.
So when we, after we found out that we couldn't actually get a contractor to start on the property, we figured, well, if we let this property set for a year,
Yep.
and just have it as a cost. We couldn't get any use out of it, obviously. We thought that maybe we could just cover our cost on it and get a tenant in there. We wanted to get a tenant in the property for 1 year, but there was no one that was willing to come in for a year. So the reason why we're asking for a 2-year extension is because we're under contract until September.
With your tenant.
Yes. And preferably, we would have liked to have some sort of agreement with a tenant where we can start out the parking lot, but that parking lot, it's all gonna get graded as one. So there's no way to work on this side and leave space for this existing business on this other end.
So,
Our intentions are to start this property and get it to where we're,
I understand that, but you've got a 2-year lease that now goes through September of 2024, right?
yes.
And then you're up against the clock to start a paving project in the fall, right?
Summer of 2024, we intend on locking in a contractor, so as soon as that tenant breaks ground, that tenant moves out, we will break ground.
So you can do a project like that in September?
Well, it might not get done in 24, beginning of 25, it'll be done. It all depends on the weather.
I'm uncomfortable with the 2-year delay, but I understand the reasons. But I think my concern gets back to Mr. Jolly's point. This is a business going on for 2 years that has nothing to do with the business that was originally approved.
Like I said, it was our intention to start on the property right away. We purchased the property, and that was our intentions, although we have a lease contract with the current property where we're in right now. But this was unexpected. I was not aware it was so hard to find a contractor.
It's terrible. Mr. Chair.
Ms. Toy?
You know, as you guys are as we're putting, I should say, this whole thing about buildings and things, I think, you know, the sensitivity between COVID, between landscapers and asphalt people, as Councilman Dominic has said, it puts you behind the 8 ball as a business owner. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
You can't find people to do things in the business, and your intent is good, and your intent is you want to fix up your place and maintain it, but, you know, there's only so much you can do. And so the frustrating parts are things start slipping away, and then you're paying double the cost a lot of times. So, you know, I empathize with you as a business in that regard. I know what my colleagues are saying, but I can only tell you from some of the experiences we've had, it's very difficult being in business these days with, you know, the lack of employees, the lack of services you can hire even to provide services that you can't do, like asphalting, landscaping, things like that. And yet we're under city restrictions to do certain things to our properties, which we all want to maintain and keep Livonia beautiful. So I don't mean to go into that, except honestly, I felt the frustration as a small business owner here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't we'll put this on regular. And do we have any audience comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll have you back at the next meeting. I believe it's on May 22nd.
Sounds
Okay?
good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to item number 7. This is a site plan petition from the Planning Commission 2023-030802, submitted by Four Winds Church requesting to expand the parking lot of the church at 31840 7 Mile Road, located on the north side of 7 Mile Road between Merriman Road and Osmus Avenue in the southwest quarter of Section 3. Good evening, gentlemen. Name and address of the person speaking.
I'm David Hamilton. I'm at 28844 Vista Way, and that's in South Lyon. And with me tonight is Pastor Jeff Noble from Four Winds Church.
36039 Scone Street in Livonia, Michigan, 48154.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Tormina, are you going to walk us through this?
I can do that very quickly.
Thank you,
yes.
sir.
So Four Winds Church, as you indicated, is located on 7 Mile Road. It actually has frontage on 3 streets, Osmus, Auburndale, and 7 Mile Road. And as you can see from the aerial photograph, parking currently is on the west side of the church building and on the front or the south side. And what the petitioner would like to do is expand parking to the east side. To do that, they would rearrange the circulation pattern. This would be one-way circulation coming in from the easterly drive approach on 7 Mile Road. Cars would then proceed either west and park in front of the church as they currently can, or extend north. So this would be the new parking area. Everything you see shown in the gray pattern would be additional paving on the property. This is all angled parking, so it would be one-way drive access, circulating back around the property on the north side, and then south, they would restructure the parking lot here for angled parking, and then the exit would be on the westerly drive approach onto 7 Mile Road. So this adds roughly 19, I believe, parking spaces overall to the current parking arrangement. The issues that the Planning Commission discussed considerably were landscaping. There is a fully detailed landscape plan submitted, and the impact to the neighborhood to the north. There is a wooden fence that extends across this north property line. The public safety has indicated that they would like to see the width of this driveway increased from 15 feet to 20 feet. That issue has not been resolved, but the Planning Commission acted with the presumption that it would have to be widened, in which case they would like to, the petitioner to work with the neighbors to replace this fence or add landscaping along the nice north side of the property, should there be enough room, depending on what happens with that driveway. We have not discussed the final details of what that would look like. The Planning Commission wanted to leave that up to the planning and inspection and engineering departments in determining exactly what that the final geometrics of that parked or that drive approach would be. So they are recommending approval of the petition. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody from the council? Ms. Toy?
So if I may to the petitioner, Mr. Hamilton, is it?
Yes.
Is your congregation growing? Is that the need for the parking as well?
It is growing. We've added additional services on Friday and, Saturday evening, Sunday morning at 8, and another service at 11. So we've been accommodating 8:30. I never go to the 8:30. I was just reminded, I don't go to that 8:30 service.
I do.
But he does. But yes, 8:30 on Sunday. So yes, we've accommodated by scheduling, and but again, we're trying to be good neighbors and get that parking off the streets, and that's. And if you go through there on a Sunday at 11 o'clock is the busiest service. Altogether on Sunday we have about 120 people that come. So yeah, cut that in half for cars roughly, and we're just trying to accommodate the cars within our own parking.
Did you find somebody to do your asphalt?
Where'd that guy go?
It's your secret, okay. He's got a lot of pull, as a former state representative, correct?
Yes.
Vicious rumor.
Yes, vicious rumor, okay. I see nothing wrong with this plan, and anything we can do to help churches these days, I'm all about it. So I'm gonna offer it approving.
Anybody else from the council? Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Pastor Noble, for being here, Mr. Hamilton. To Mr. Tormina, I'm still a little confused on this lane to the north. I was trying to watch the Planning Commission meeting and trying to listen to your comments tonight. I'd like to thank the petitioners for trying to help the residents. I mean, it sounds like your church is growing and a number of people were parking in the streets, which, makes it more difficult for residents to back in and out of their driveways, just makes it more congested. And you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in parking lots and infrastructure enhancements to add parking and contain the parking more or less on your property, which is very nice of you because a lot of business owners, property owners wouldn't do that, and you're taking that upon yourself. So I appreciate that, and I think the city needs to work with you, and that's where I'm confused, Mr. Tormina, on that lane to the north. If I look at the map and I drove by, there's a park back there with a fence, and there's like a shed structure, whatnot, and then to the north there's the fence right there. and there's some space on, at least on the blueprints we have, there's some space for the property line and the fence maybe. Are you asking that, or is the planning commission asking that they remove the fence and add more asphalt so they can achieve that 20 feet? Or what are you guys asking for exactly?
Public safety has suggested.
Public safety, excuse me.
That the width of that drive aisle be increased from 15 feet to 20 feet. In doing that, it would really hamper the ability to add landscaping along the fence line. One of the options that was discussed is removing that shed and pushing that driveway further to the south if it has to be increased. Alternatively, the petitioner agreed to reach out to the homeowners to the north if they're in agreement to keep that or to replace that fence, and if public safety holds firm on their request to increase the driveway. The planning commission did accept those design alterations or modifications.
And in its present form, there is no drive back there, so no emergency vehicles can get back there regardless.
Well, and that's the issue, that's the discussion we have to have with public safety is there a real need for the ability to have that, to have that 20 feet in order to drive back there. They have access right now along 3 sides of the property without any problem, and they've never had access there in the past. So the question is it absolutely mandatory that it be 20 feet, or could they live with a one-way 15-foot drive as long as they have the turning radii?
And to the petitioner, that shed, is it pretty important? I mean, would it greatly impede you if we mandated that you take that down to widen this 5 more feet, even though there's currently no drive aisle back there in its present form?
It's a pretty substantial structure. It would be, and we don't have any way, we could move it, but it'd be at kind of great cost, and we would try not to do that. I should point out a couple other things. Yes, we'd love to go the 20 feet, but we don't have room for the landscaping if we were to do that. And the last thing is, as we discussed, we don't own the fences to the north. Those aren't on our property. If you look at them, the fence faces us, which means the property owners to the north. Those are their fences. But as was asked, I did communicate, or at least I wrote a letter and I left it at each individual. There's 2 homes. I left them a letter on Sunday. I hope maybe someone came. But I don't know if I didn't get a response via email or phone from those letters that were delivered. So that's kind of up in the air. Personally, we'd like to just paint the fence and make it look presentable. And we could widen the road if we're not required to put arborvitaes of some sort of narrow vegetation in that area. So that's kind of the decision, we've kind of left it to the council is, do you have to have the 20-foot? Okay, fine. We can do that, but then we don't have a lot of room for landscaping. And then that's when the fence issue came up, and we can only do so much because it's not even ours. So we need your input to, come up with a decision that we can all live with, hopefully.
Mr. Jolly? I was going to finish to Mr. Tormina. Is it realistic for us, I don't want to just leave this up to the building department or some other department to change it later. I think it's important that council makes a decision tonight on this for the regular to vote on. Are we allowed to waive the landscaping? I don't think it's realistic to have them remove the shed. I think that's makes it very difficult on the petitioner. I think they're already enhancing this property greatly, and there's also a drive out in the front of the building. So I think, is it realistic for us to waive the landscaping requirement along the fence? They've already asked to enhance the fence, and it's very difficult to get responses from residents maybe to change someone else's fence. Would we be able to achieve that extra 5 feet if we remove the landscaping requirement along the fence and gave that 5 feet so that would help or make the public safety department happy?
Yeah, I think the resolution addresses that. It provides that option.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, so I was going in the same direction. I think that, they should have the driveway at 20 feet, and if possible, we could probably, I could get on board with removing the landscaping. I think it is a safety issue to be able to get fire trucks or an ambulance back there if necessary. And also, it'd probably make it flow a whole lot better going around the building. So it does mean a lot. 15-foot lane compared to 20-foot. So that's what I would recommend at this time.
Mr. Barr?
I just want to say that this building's been there for a really long time without this back there, and it hasn't been a safety issue. This was mentioned in the planning commission meeting. I think it's fine at 15 feet. Frankly, I'd rather have it at the 15 feet, which is more access than we've ever had for the last 60 some odd years with the landscaping. So I think this is unregular, so we can probably handle it when we vote on it, but I don't think the 20 foot is necessary. Thanks.
Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Mr. Tormina, and maybe even to the petitioner, do you know where the fire department connection is at this facility? Where the main FDC is? Because that could,
I believe it's on the east side of the building.
so it's not in the back?
It is not.
I just wanted to confirm that because I'm assuming and making those assumptions that the fire department connection would be on a side of the building that would not have to have impact in the rear of the plan. Thank you.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah. Approving, I got offered,
Approving with,
approving the way it was presented.
the way it was presented, though, didn't clarify the details that are needed at this point.
Well, what planning recommended was an approving, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think Donovic, do you offer the approving, correct, sir?
And to Mr. President, that's why I'm still confused on, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, so Toy offered the approving, but there seems to be like a gray area here in regards to something that, with the current approval, leaves it to the administration to have administrative clarification and work with the petitioners. I'm hearing that we want to have that resolved tonight from my colleagues here, so.
So Barr's got it.
Mr. Chair, my understanding from my prep prior to today was that, yeah, the resolution that's before us leaves it at 15 feet, but recognizes that the administration, or that as they go through approvals, 20 feet may be required. If that's the case, I'm pretty confident every one of us would understand that and go with it, but I believe if we just proceeded as is, it would stand at 15 feet unless they were told otherwise.
Right, that's the way I interpret.
Okay.
If I can add, if we stay at 15 feet, we would add the arborvitae's to the north. If we do not, we would just have the fence and a 20-foot driveway. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any audience comments on this item? I see none. We have an approving, forgive me, was that for regular?
Regular, yeah,
Okay.
right?
We'll put that for regular, and then if you can somehow make contact with the other property owners over there between now and then, the 22nd, that would give us some degree of clarification on what you're gonna be doing too.
Oh, okay, I've sent out 2 letters, just so you know, and I did knock on doors on Sunday. I have not been able to reach the folks.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, but this gives 2 additional weeks, that maybe they would contact you or something like that, okay?
Okay. So if they call the police on him, no, just me knocking on their door.
You always
And
gotta
if we are not able to reach them,
I don't think it's gonna hurt you, but we always like to have that option, okay?
we'll keep working on it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8 is from the Planning Commission, and that's a site plan petition for petition 2023030803, submitted by No Far Hotel Group requesting to construct a 4-story Staybridge Suites Hotel at 31501 Schoolcraft Road, located on the south side of Schoolcraft Road between Merriman Road and Hubbard Avenue in the northeast quarters section of 27. Is anybody here for the petitioner for the No Far Group?
Good evening, Commission members. I'm Brian Biskiner from Powell Engineering, 4700 Cornerstone Drive, White Lake, Michigan. I'm here to answer any questions you have, and I believe Mark's going to start, right?
Yep. Mr. Tormina, can you give us a run-through?
Thank you. As council knows, this property is in the process of being rezoned. You gave first reading back in January of this year. This is now the site plan review for the new hotel. The existing building, the former Mountain Jack's restaurant, that would be removed and a new hotel built in its place. The hotel is very similar in design to the concepts that you saw during the rezoning petition. Overall, it's about 70,900 square feet. It would be 4 stories. On the first floor, there would be 10 guest suites, great room, shared living room, pantry, lobby, indoor pool, as well as laundry rooms, the things you would typically expect with the hotel. And then the second, third, and fourth floors would all be very similar, containing the guest suites. Overall, there would be 94 guest suites provided. The hotel meets all the setback requirements. It meets all of the parking requirements. In fact, one of the conditions that the Planning Commission imposed was, originally there was parking shown along this driveway coming in off of Merriman Road. They opted to land bank those parking spaces and replace those with landscaping. That is what the latest plan that you have now shows. We also discussed the placement of the trash dumpster. This service drive along the back of the property, modifications were made to that. And then finally, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about the building materials themselves. You have a rendering that shows what the building looks like. The original concept showed this predominantly ephes or stucco material. The Planning Commission wanted that changed. They're recommending that all of these dark panel areas on the building be metal or some type of masonry or panel. They don't want to see that as being ephes. The tower element above the main entrance and the porte cochere, that was originally shown as porcelain. I'm not sure what the current plans are showing, if that switched to ephes, but that's something we'd want to see maintained in a material other than ephes. The Planning Commission also recommended that the entire second floor be some type of metal panel or masonry material, but the only adjustments to the design at this point show these dark colored areas as being, I believe, metal panel. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer any questions you may have.
I'll go to the council. Are there any questions? Okay. For the petitioner, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think he did a great job. I guess just very quickly, I'll mention the materials on the building, just to be clear. The Planning Commission requested that the second floor and the dark ephes be changed to something other than ephes. So the owner and the tall tower portion is still porcelain tile. The dark material was changed from ephes to metal panel. And they did not show the full second floor being changed to another material other than ephes, but the brick that goes from the first floor is actually 12 foot high. So it does get into that second floor dimension. But that's all I'll mention. Other than that, Mark nailed it.
Mr. Barr?
Yeah, before I offer an approving, just Mark, the resolution, maybe off the top of your head, does it capture all to the extent that it needs to, the adjustments that were made?
No, I think I'll have to work with the law department and to make some corrections to the approving resolution that was presented by the Planning Commission.
All right, we've reviewed this with previous decisions to this of zoning and stuff, where I think we're pretty well familiar with this proposal. There's been a lot of discussion about it. I'll offer an approving, assuming that all of those changes as appropriate are incorporated, and I'll trust Mark and Paul to work together to capture that before we vote on it. And because of those changes and the nature of this, it's probably good to keep it on the regular.
Okay, is there any audience comments on this? I see none, so we'll see you back at the regular on the 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your attendance tonight. Item number 9 is a request to approve an increase in compensation for the Assistant City Treasurer and the Assistant City Clerk from the Civil Service Department to increase compensation to be aligned with the Deputy Treasurer and Deputy Clerk classifications.
I'm glad you said that, President Jolly. I'm Janine Live on behalf of the Civil Service Commission, and we are here to request that you approve the proposed rate adjustment to bring the classification of Assistant Treasurer and Assistant Clerk to be on par with the Deputy Treasurer and Deputy Clerk.
So I'm going to start us off right off the bat here. I wasn't familiar that we had Assistant City Treasurer and Assistant City Clerk. I knew we had deputies. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, so our treasurer and our clerk get to appoint their deputies. That is outside of the Civil Service Commission. It's an appointed position. When we have someone who is, so say for example, if our treasurer was out and her deputy was also out, she would have, the next person in line in senior, or not seniority, and I guess next in command, would step up temporarily as needed into that deputy position, but because the deputy is outside of civil service, They sort of need a shelter to find them, a classification to fill into so that they can stay within this classified service.
Okay. Is there typically one assistant for each of these departments?
Yes.
Okay. Counsel, Ms. Toy?
Do we, if I may, Ms. Libo, do we currently have those in place in either one of these departments?
We currently,
The assistant?
the position currently exists, but it's not a position that's regularly filled. If there's a deputy that's been appointed, the assistant is just kind of an open space where if you were working within the civil service and you had to temporarily move up, you would move into that civil service protected position rather than the appointed position.
Okay, so they can temporarily, I hear you say, move up, and then they can move back down when?
Yes, that's called a temporary assignment as needed. So it's not that they would always be in that position, but when it comes up, it's a way to make sure that they have a mechanism to get paid.
Wow, I never heard of this before. And,
We like
yeah.
to keep it complicated.
And I was a treasurer at one point, yeah, okay. Darn, I could have had extra help. Anyhow, so tell me a little bit about the compensation. Are we equivalent with other communities and things like that, or do they even have this?
I think a year or so ago, we did the wage study for the deputy positions, and we made adjustments to increase them. So this assistant position is not something that we did a wage study on. We kept it consistent with the deputies as it's always been.
So if somebody was in the office, they could get a bump up, and so their wage would increase, or would we be bringing somebody brand new into that?
Oh, no, it's someone who would get bumped up into that
Okay,
position.
so like okay, I get it. I get it now. Okay, I'll ask for an approving since, you were so great at explaining it. What's
We'll
wrong?
put that on the consent if there's no objection. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address this matter? I see none.
Sorry, I wasn't understanding.
Thank you, Ms. Leibel.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too.
We had that.
Item 10 is an award of contract from the Department of Economic Development to provide a transportation study for the city of Livonia from budgeted funds.
Sorry, yeah. To provide a study. for-
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Jacob Uhazy with Planning and Economic Development, as well as on behalf of Community Transit, requesting award of contract to OHM to conduct the transportation study.
Okay, what is the 2-minute rundown of this? What do you plan on doing?
Basically, it is working with an advisory group from the Chamber of Commerce to look at transportation solutions facing the city of Livonia. As you guys heard earlier, community transit is kind of at capacity, and we're trying to seek ways that, one, it would improve that operation, as well as looking at, this would be the first citywide transportation study to build on the objectives of Livonia Vision 21, as well as looking at some of the workforce issues that a lot of our local businesses are experiencing, and see how we can address those issues and in a creative, a new manner that didn't necessarily exist when we opted out of SMART 20 years ago, and created community transit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm, through the chair. I'm just wondering, is this gonna include maybe some bike paths or some walking paths, something that, people can get from the south end to the north end?
This would be a
Things that we have
separate-
looked at in the past?
We have looked at in the Bike Walk Livonia. This would be strictly like public transit in partnership with community transit, how we could actually I don't want to say fixed route buses, what you think of, but alternative solutions to moving people around in some sort of public transit, but not necessarily non-motorized.
So the vagueness there scares me because the original master plan from 1985 talked about having a monorail. Will there be a monorail?
Got some bike paths.
That is one of the things that that is not one of the things we've looked at, but we want to look at with the study, having OHM, a third party, looking at this to see what are the transportation solutions that people are finding that work for communities of similar size and scope for us.
Thank you. Ms. McIntyre?
I had the privilege of being a member of this committee, which was chaired by Mr. Yazzie, and Jessica Caters from OHM was very, very helpful in the study, or this committee. And this is a huge, complex topic. And like many things, the problem and the solutions are amorphous, right? They're all over the place. You need a starting place. And I think what we know is that big bus routes may have their place for some things, but they're never gonna serve the needs, right, of our population, of our businesses. And I think this is a really important place to start with a trusted expert who is, and I know Rhett Groeneveldt, one of the principals, is out there, and appreciate him being here. But this is what OHM does, right? It's this has so many pieces to it. There's a technical piece, there's a funding piece, right? There's an infrastructure piece, there's an assessment of where you need to move people from and to. And it's almost impossible to know where to start a project like this, but I think this is exactly the right place to start it. And I was asked the question, you know, does this just, are we doing this so we can subsidize employers who currently have to provide their own transportation systems? And I think that's a good question, and something that I'm always concerned about is shifting burdens from private sector onto taxpayers who don't necessarily always get a vote in things. But if Livonia is going to continue to be an employer of choice, and because we've got, unlike many other communities, we have such a significant and large industrial corridor, right? We want to continue to be able to draw companies like manufacturers like Amazon that have large workforces. And if we can't take a bite of the apple somewhere, and I know that's a stupid metaphor, we're going to fall further behind in understanding what the gap is in us being an absolute continuing destination for large corporations. And, you know, we're just gonna fall further behind. And I like the idea of the study. I mean, studies can become a way of not doing anything, but we don't know where we would start without a study. So that's a very, very long way of saying, I think this is important, and I think it's a very appropriate expenditure. And I'd like to offer an approving resolution, and I'm sure there are other people that want to say things tonight, so thank you.
Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. I want to give you guys some kudos on this. You know, with this plan, obviously, there's a lot of grants out there, especially SEMCOG. As the council rep for SEMCOG, I know there's a lot of money sitting out there, so having this blueprint will go very well with some grant funding. So, and then also the other thing is the QBS, Qualified Bidding Service, the committee you guys put together. It's a great way to do things. I'm happy to see that you guys use that approach. So, good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Donovic?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Ueze, for being here tonight. I would just like to mention that I think the Livonia Community Transit Program is at capacity because it's not getting the resources it needs from the city. So I can only imagine how good of a program it could be if it was getting the resources it needs. And we learned that at the committee meeting. We spoke to the drivers and some of the department heads last week. Also, you know, we're looking at spending $100,000 of taxpayer dollars on a study, and OHM does phenomenal work, so I'm sure that they'll do a great job. But I'd like to also point out that there were multiple studies done when we decided to opt out of the smart bus system back in 2005. Over 4,000 businesses were surveyed. The Chamber of Commerce helped with multiple surveys. Multiple residents were surveyed in the community. Now, may have not been a really expensive study done by a really great company, but there were multiple things that were done. And back in 2015, Mayor Kirksey presented a presentation to the City Council, kind of explaining the impacts on the residents and how many drivers and whatnot. So there has been some good homework done in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what OHM, if this contract passes, will come up with. I'd also like to ask and just send a message to you to make sure that we talk about what the impacts on the residents will be, because the fact of the matter is there's some 40,000 homes in this community, and I imagine each home probably has 2 to 3 cars per household. So if we go back to spending millions and millions and millions of taxpayer dollars between 1997 and 2005, we spent almost $16 million in taxpayer dollars on a community transit system that no one in the city of Livonia really used. So I just want to make sure that the administration understands and the study understands that I don't think it's a good idea to go back to spending probably more than $20 million now if you take in consideration of inflation, what a mass transit system would cost residents when majority of residents aren't using that. So I just hope that this study looks at all perspectives and doesn't just become a soundboard for something. But I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
One thing I do want to address is that this already is a public-private partnership. In the funding, it is a $100,000 study, but we have already worked with SEMCOG, and they're actually paying for about $32,000 of it. The Chamber of Commerce has committed funds. Masco has already put in $15,000. So it's already a truly public-private venture that is just kind of being spearheaded by the city because we have community transit and the resources to kind of guide the program. But to go back to the point about subsidizing some of the workforce, the employers are express interest of shouldering some of those costs. And then part of the study will go in to see what those costs are and actually come back to them with real numbers and say, here's, if you want to be part of this, here's what it will cost, and actually make sure they have informed decision-making, or the information they need to make decisions as well.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McIntyre, did you offer an approving for this?
I did.
Okay, is that for the regular or consent?
Yeah, I'm fine with it on consent, but I know this is a big expenditure, and so I wanted to hear what my colleagues had to say before.
Any objection to that being on consent?
No.
Okay, is there any audience communication on this matter? I see none. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 11. That's an award of bid from Parks and Rec for the replacement of the fence at Botsford Pool from budgeted funds. Mr. Davis, good evening.
Thank you, Council President. Ted Davis, representing Parks and Recreation. Council has previously approved this project already in Resolution 116-22. This is part of an IGA with Wayne County. We are asking Council to award the bid to the low bidder, Motor City Fence, in the amount of $101,040. I'm happy to answer any questions Council might have.
Mr. Chair.
I think Mr. McCullough beat you.
Please,
Mr.
go
McCullough?
right ahead.
I'll be happy to offer an approving on consent.
Okay.
Support.
Any audience comments on that? I see none. Mr. Davis, I'll just say quickly, I spent some time out there this last week while JD was practicing some version of baseball. This is absolutely necessary. So during this practice, I actually did my evening run through the neighborhood over there. And this neighborhood gets a bad rap a lot of times, but if you go down those streets, those homes are actually very well cared for.
They are.
And I don't know that our park over there is living up to those expectations. That's not a criticism of you, but I would like to see us do more over there. This fence looks like a prison around.
It
I mean, it
absolutely
looks
does.
horrible, so I'm so happy that we're doing this.
Yep.
But in the future, let's try and do more. as
I've
well.
wanted to do this for almost 8 years now, since I first got here.
It's great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Item number 12 is a request to waive the city's formal bidding process and approve an animal sheltering agreement between the City of Livonia and the Michigan Humane Society from the Department of Public Works, Animal Control Division specifically, for the period of March 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023, with a boarding/holding fee of $5,726.25 per month. Mr. Roraff?
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me. Don Roraff, DPW. As you mentioned, this is a contract that we're bringing before you tonight with the Michigan Humane Society. They have provided animal sheltering services for the city since 1984. In late 2022, we were informed by the Humane Society that they would only be accepting one-year contracts effective immediately moving forward. As a result of that, our contract expired on March 1st of 2023. The new contract that is proposed before you tonight allows either party to terminate within a 30-day notice. We've been presented this new contract with a couple of large changes. I'll touch on a couple of those. As you mentioned, the monthly boarding and handling flat fee will increase from $4,581 to $5,726.25. That's a 25% increase. The last increase of this fee was back in 2018. That was an increase of 22.5% at that time. The other major change that would be taken upon by the city is that we will no longer be able to take animals who are injured or need emergency medical attention to the Humane Society after normal business hours or holidays. So basically outside of the normal working hours. This will require the city to contract with an emergency vet for these calls at an additional cost. In 2022, 519 animals were taken to the Humane Society by the Livonia Animal Control officers after their attempts to find or contact owners with failed no license tags, no chips, etc. I do have representatives from the Humane Society here tonight. If you would like to ask them any questions in regards to anything, but I don't know if you want me to go ahead with the recommendation or if you'd like to hold up with some questions.
You know, I'll get us started here. I understand the utility of this, and I understand the need for this. You know, I'm going to get some laughs here in a second, but when the first time we had this in 2018, the jump in price was so shocking that I brought up the Consumer Price Index and showed that these jumps in prices from this particular vendor are like nothing else we see anywhere else in the city. 25% here, 20% here. Nothing else jumps up like this, nothing else. Not the price of, and I'm not criticizing, listen, we have no choice at this point, but this is very hard to understand. And now we're going up about $1,200 a month, and we're getting significantly less services than we did beforehand. I know you have a lot on your plate. This might be a point in time to touch base with other communities and see if there's an opportunity for some other different shared resource in regards to this. Ms. McIntyre?
So the contract,
Just before we get off of that, just to reply to that.
Sure.
We have, that's why we're standing here in May. We spent the last couple of months reaching out to different communities, to different shelters, to different places to see if there was an opportunity to, you know, engage with them and deliver animals and do those things that we would need to do with them. At this current point in time, there's absolutely nothing that we were able to be able to work out any kind of deal. A lot of the places are in the middle of a reconstruction or rehabilitation of their facilities. Some of the other places have just closed down. So to your point, I just wanted to make it known that we have spent the last couple months reaching out to 5, 6, 7 other places of business to try to do that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Ms. McIntyre?
Don, the contract expired on March 1st, and we're now just having this discussion?
Correct. We're on a month-to-month at this point.
But this is the first time it's come to us, even though the contract expired on the 1st of March?
That's correct. We were, as I just stated, we were
But-
out
but-
trying to do that.
But I don't understand why you wouldn't have come to us in March, or that we didn't know the contract was expiring, that we were month to month. I mean, how is it that we are engaging, that we're doing these services without a contract in place? And maybe that's a question for the city attorney. I'm sorry, or
Yeah, no,
through the chair. I'm just,
We are on a month-to-month. Probably should have been brought here sooner. We were hoping that we would be able to find alternatives, and that this wouldn't get to this point. We looked at a lot of different alternatives, and we just, quite frankly, got stuck, and Michigan Humane Society's helped stick us with that, so.
I understand, but this is the kind of thing that, to me, I just don't understand how this comes to us now, and council's back is up against the wall. We had, and maybe I missed something. I had absolutely no idea that, you know, I try to pay attention. I don't know when contracts expire.
Is it my turn?
Ms. Toy?
Could I ask Mr. Roroff a couple things?
Yes,
whatever
whatever
you'd
you'd like.
Alrighty. Mr. Roroff, in the amount of years I've been sitting on this council, they've always been a sole source, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had one years back that would take our animals for us, but, I mean, and the Humane Society does a great job. They really do. I mean, I mean, I'm not here to promote the Humane Society, but they have a difficult job because really it's a pet owner sometimes that is neglectful or doesn't want the animal and just drops it in the street in some cases. But hopefully Livonia doesn't do that. And I don't know, maybe I don't mean to put this on the clerk, but maybe we need to look at what we're doing on licenses and making sure that, you know, somehow we're licensing. Would that help at all with these animals? Because now, if we're not gonna treat them, you know what I mean, and they're injured, and we gotta take them somewhere else, where else do we take them? You know, is a local vet gonna help us out? I don't know. I mean, I know you're trying to explore places, but have you guys come up with anything?
Yeah, and again, through the process of working with the law department, going back and forth with the contract once we received it, to see if there was any bargaining that we could happen in here, and expressing our concerns, it was going back and forth. And again, the Humane Society is here to ask those questions direct. I'm only relaying what was being reiterated to us through our questioning. We are set up to go to another vet on an after hours or a holiday type of situation until they open back up during the working hours.
That we
there.
pay for in addition to what we're paying the
That is
Humane
correct.
Society.
That is what is proposed.
Yeah, and I know, you know, tail waggers is mentioned earlier, they're having that golf outing and that, but they do certain things, but they're not an intake, to my knowledge. And, you know, the Humane Society does a roundness of a whole lot of kinds of things.
Right.
I think I've gotten a cat or two from them at the Bow Wow Brunch. So I'd like to hear from them too, if that's okay, because
Yes.
Livonians have a lot of animals. I mean, a lot of dogs. I mean, my dog even got along with McIntyre's dog, right? McIntyre? Remember?
Mr. Roraff?
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
In the last year, I had to take one of our dogs to the emergency vet. And extremely quickly, the bill was $2,000. What in the world are we gonna be doing to pay for those bills? And to Mr. Bernier, do we have anything in place to recapture costs for pet owners who may have dumped an injured pet on the street? I mean, God love the pets, right? And I mean, we want to take care of them and do right by them. But we might need to look at a larger scope here in regards to making sure, listen, I mean, I didn't love the $2,000 bill when it was my dog, right? I mean, I can't imagine where this might end up.
Put them down.
We try to recoup as much of the expense as we can in the criminal process as part of the restitution. And we do collect money, but I would be less than honest if I said we collected 50% of it. It's, a lot of the folks don't have the ability to pay, and it becomes you're chasing after them and you're not gonna get the money. So we will get the orders of restitution, but that doesn't mean we're getting the money. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I think Mr. Roraff probably has a better idea of how much we actually bring in, but we do get money back in restitution when there is a prosecution or a pending case.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCullough?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Mr. Roraff, have we attempted to send this out for an RFP through Mitten to see if we had any hits?
We did not put this out on an RFP. We had reached out to Taylor, we've reached out to Southfield, we've reached out to Huron, Washtenaw, we've reached out to a bunch of different communities, but we did not put this out for an RFP.
Just wondering if, obviously Mitten has a vast reach, and we do have, different organizations even in the city and around. Obviously, right now, we're kind of stuck with this. There's really nothing we can do. It's 1 year. But I would hope that going forward, try Mitten, see what's going on with it. You might get some hits.
I would be happy to do that. I know we've talked in-house even of trying to partnership with different communities to some extent to run our own. Obviously, we would have to supply some labor and some people that would be there to monitor those situations and do that. Again.
Because even one thing, not to cut you off on it, but, what discretion, obviously with the partnership with the Humane Society, if it's after hours and, an animal's in need of medical attention, is there a process and requirements that tells us, you know, this animal needs to be euthanized, or, you know, what does that look like? You know, if an animal goes and has a broken leg, who makes that call on what the future is?
Regarding where it goes, or
So, no.
where is it already
Let's say
somewhere?
hypothetically,
I'm sorry, I'm not
someone,
understanding
we
your
pick up a
question.
dog. Now, under this current contract, the Humane Society says, hey, after hours, you're gonna have to wait till the next day, or you're gonna have to find emergency care. Say the animal's got a broken leg. You take it to emergency care. What's the determination, you know, hey, here's an estimate, $2,000 that you're gonna fix the leg of the dog,
Why it's important for them to be checked or registered.
or the next step is to euthanize the animal? I mean, who's making that decision? And
It's a licensed vet that obviously would be making those decisions.
But if they
at
said,
that
hey, you know, it's $2,000, we're gonna pay the $2,000 to get that animal's leg fixed if it wasn't life-threatening, or no?
Currently, that would be, that's how we've operated, yes.
Okay.
But I think the problem is, as soon as you walk into an emergency vet, it's $2,000.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
So, Ms. McIntyre?
That's exactly the point. So we pick up an animal, it's in terrible condition, it's got no microchip,
Exactly.
and we take it to the vet, and Livonia taxpayers are on the hook. I mean, you walk in, and I do think it's like $500 is like what you, that's the minimum.
More than that when I went.
Well, I haven't been to an emergency vet in a long time, but, and, you know, I'm an animal person, right? But to President Jolly's point, when we opt, right, to say we're gonna pony up the thousands of dollars to save our animal, that's our money. But we're telling taxpayers, like, you have a cat with a broken back that's been hit by a car, and now you're on the hook for $2,000 to try to save, and this is what I would like to understand what other communities do, because I cannot believe that communities that are less affluent and whose budgets are a lot tighter than Livonia take a badly injured animal to the after-hours vet and say, send us the bill. I mean, do they, Don? I don't know.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
No.
Every community is different. They all have a different contract. City of Wayne houses animals to a certain point before they take them. And just to answer a question of earlier too, for clarity, if that same broken leg, injured animal, that wasn't being done for free at the Humane Society, there's a cost involved with all of that as well.
I understand that.
Right. So,
but
I
the
mean, just
cost-
for clarity, I
I
don't-
understand that.
yeah.
But the cost goes from this
100%, I
to
100%
this.
agree with you.
Okay, so I didn't think it was free.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point.
I knew it wasn't free.
Ms. Toy?
Could we ask the Humane Society perhaps, you know, maybe to give us some explanation
Sure.
of why this is happening? We've been customers of theirs for years.
Sure.
You know, if you don't mind.
There's, Megan and Laura are here tonight from the Humane Society.
I don't think you have all the answers.
I do
but- Okay.
Good evening, welcome.
Hello,
What's your name, please?
my name is Laura Golden. I am here with Michigan Humane, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I know that you were, before you asked your questions, I guess, I know you're very concerned about emergency care. Since this was given to the city before the end of the year, you haven't had any animals that needed emergency care after hours. So just keep that in mind. Additionally, for the emergency care after hours, it would just be a matter of stabilizing them, and then they could come to the facility once we open.
Who can?
That's helpful. Are there any questions from the council specifically, Ms. Toy?
Who can come and pick them up? Is it the city that's gonna come, or the owner, or
From
if
the
they don't have a microchip or a tag?
From the emergency facility?
Yes.
Yes, so that would be probably animal control, who could bring
Okay.
them to us during business hours. And we do and will continue to see emergency cases during business hours.
So what is the reason you're not accepting animals anymore for the surgeries or fixing them, or however you want to describe it?
I mean, after hours, we do not have a vet on site. Previously, the standard of care was to euthanize those animals that were severely injured after night or after hours. Care has evolved, and that's no longer the right answer. They need to go to an emergency clinic.
Okay, and then help us understand why the costs are going up that much money, the 27%?
Sure. The cost of care for animals, just like asphalt, has gone up dramatically. On average, it costs us $689 per animal to care for them. That's an average.
And can you, without getting real deep, how do you care for them? Just by the cage and some food until their animals or till their owners are found, if possible?
They get whatever they need until they go home or go up for adoption to be adopted.
Adoption, okay.
So that can include extensive medical care. Additionally, because you were asking about recouping some of your costs, so animals that are reclaimed by their owners, all of the costs that Michigan Humane takes in is on behalf of the city, and you get credit for that cost.
Okay.
In 2022, of your 519 animals, 135 were reclaimed. I think a low average would be $100 per animal that the public has paid to get those animals back, and you guys get credit on your bill for that.
Are they mostly dogs?
Mostly dogs that get reclaimed, yes.
Okay, alrighty. I had another question, I lost it, but,
And we do require licensing before they go home.
okay.
So I know that you had brought that up earlier.
Right. The other question I was gonna have is, do you guys recommend emergency care anywhere, or do you know of anyone that does that then?
Unfortunately, we cannot recommend emergency care because if we as an organization recommend emergency care, it's a
Right.
conflict of interest.
Okay, all right, just wondered.
Mr. Barr, thank you.
Actually, I had a question for Mr. Roroff.
Oh.
So,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
so Don, Brandon asked, sorry, Councilman McCullough, to be formal here, asked if you'd put this on Minton, you said no. I'm not sure you ever explained, why would we not put this on Minton before doing a no-bid contract?
Again, going back, we've always been with the Humane Society. There's not a whole lot of competition per se out there. To call them a sole supplier is probably an understatement, in my opinion. I would be happy to put it out on Minton.
So is there competition? I mean, I know we've said we looked at surrounding communities and things, but, I mean, are you just telling me you know you'd put it out in Minton and get nothing?
No, I don't know that.
Okay.
And again, I said I would be happy to put it out.
It's frustrating to get this kind of cost increase, you know, and with no bid and not have exhausted all avenues to try to find something different. What happens if we don't approve this?
I would think we would continue on a month-to-month. If we're gonna put this out to bid, we would put it out to bid ASAP. And again, we are in constant communications. I know in discussions back and forth, and Paul's been in most of those discussions with the Humane Society. That's why they're here tonight. They wanna finalize this. They don't wanna keep going month to month, and we don't either, to be honest with you.
And I haven't, maybe in all this discussion it's been there, but I'm assuming there's a cost savings in doing the year contract versus the month to month, if we were to average it out.
Well, we're not even at a full year, right? But it's gonna work out the same.
It's gonna work out the same?
I'm sorry.
30-day out.
Yeah, I mentioned that. There's a 30-day out from either side.
So if we found something else, we could get out in 30 days, with 30 days notice of this
Okay,
contract.
I see. Was there a resolution on the table?
I don't believe so.
All right, obviously you hear the frustration here.
I join you in that.
Yeah, and yet it's part of the frustration is the fact we haven't exhausted every avenue to look at this before we brought this to us 2 months after we found out about it. It's frustrating. That being said, I understand where we're at. I'll offer an approving. I'd also like to offer that for the council's consideration that we put, for lack of a better option, I'm going to suggest the Public Safety and Health Committee, which is chaired by Kathleen McIntyre, to this subject of, I don't know what to call it, but just put this subject into committee so we can get a report from the administration as to what they find as they continue to investigate other options for this.
Okay. Any objection to those being on consent?
I have no objection to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
Any audience comment on this? I see none. Thank you, Mr. Borath. Thank you, ladies, for attending tonight. We'll move on to item 13. And it's a request to approve purchase of rock salt for ice control from the Public Works Division using a cooperative bidding process for the 23-24 and 24-25 seasons with 4 additional one-year extensions at the approved 3% per year increase from budgeted funds. Mr. Roraff?
Thank you. As you stated, this contract tonight is for our rock salt that we use in the snow and ice program. City of Livonia has been part of a cooperative bidding process that includes 30 governmental entities within Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. This cooperative has traditionally received lower pricing per ton than those received under the State of Michigan Extended Purchasing Program. This year's bid is for, as you mentioned, 2-year period with 4 additional 1-year extensions at the approved 3% per year increase. It is the recommendation of the department to authorize the purchase of city's rock salt needs from Detroit Salt at the unit prices listed of $59 per ton for the season of 2023-2024, and the price of $60.77 per ton for the 2024 and 2025 season. Additionally, authorizing the 4-year, 1-year extensions through 2029 at the approved 3% per year increase upon mutual consent between the vendor and the city.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Toy?
I'll offer an approving.
Okay. Any objection to consent? I see none. Any audience comments? I see none. Item 14 is a request to accept
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Accept stormwater facilities maintenance agreement from Engineering Division for Comfort Care Senior Living in conjunction with the construction of storm drain system at 34020 Plymouth Road in the southeast quarter of Section 28. Mr. Zelinsek?
Thank you, Council President, council members. Again, housekeeping issue. This is located just behind, near OHM and the old Social Security office there and Black Label Tavern. And just allows us to proceed forward for approval and then send it down to Wayne County for recording now that everything is in order for us to approve. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'll offer an approving consent if there's no objection from my colleagues.
Okay, audience comment on 14. I see none. Moving on to 15. Award of construction contract from engineering for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation grant for the Denmark Drain Channel Improvement Project, citing council resolutions 95-22 and 289-22. Mr. Zelinsek?
As you're aware, we got a grant for $1 million last March to tackle 3 locations for drainage improvements. The first is under construction at Whispering Willows. Again, appreciate the council's approval for that project, just under $400,000. This evening, we had this project, which is a Denmark drain located east off Levan Road near Hoover Middle School. There's a 300 and some odd foot, 16-foot wide concrete section that's been eroding over the years, creating an issue. There's a 15-inch diameter outfall on the north side of the location. There's tiger teeth and again a pedestrian bridge in which graffiti has been written on there. We're looking for City Council to take approval on the bids that were given by ECT. This evening I have Rob Maloya in the audience. If we need to, we can bring him up to the podium to answer any questions, but he was instrumental in the design plans for this. Originally part of the ARC project, looking for funding, but with this windfall of MDC grant money, we took this initiative to take care of this issue, which will now replace the concrete channel with log riffles and help deteriorate the eroded sections along the corridor, which then outlets to the Idlewild Golf Course. Total improvements will improve the water quality within the stream, provide a better habitat for fish and wildlife. We're asking for your approval through to Soleil Underground LLC in the amount of $199,000. $673. We included a 5% contingency just because of the uniqueness of the fact that it's a drainage area behind the pedestrian bridge. There's some unknowns since the bidding took place with the plans being done back early in the spring. I'd also like to thank Livonia Public Schools for their allowing us to come to their property after school is out come mid-June to facilitate this project. If it wasn't for them, obviously, we need to get permission on their property. We'd have to go through Idlewild Golf Course, would be, again, detrimental to the play, to the golfers on that course, and disruption to the property. So, again, I want to thank the LPS, Harry Lau and Phil Francis, for their ability to cooperate with us and have the contractor, if approved, to go on there after school is out. There'll be no work done during the week that school is in, which is August 28th. They're starting earlier this year. So that way people can get acclimated for the kids in the play, in the parking lot, get acclimated to that location, especially a lot of foot traffic there. So we are hopeful that With this project, that'll be completed. And lastly, I just want to let you know that with these two projects, what remains is only about $200,000 left for Bell Creek Court project again. That's a significant project which has taken a little longer than anticipated based on Eagle permitting. So we may have to circulate back to figure out the best way to try to see if we can accomplish that project this year, or it may need to take funds and put it towards another project, depending on, again, bidding out, see what happens in the future. But just want to be aware of where we're at with these three projects that we're trying to complete as we intended last March. With that, Rob, I don't know if you want to come to the podium and ask or bring anything else to the project that I may have forgot.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Morgan?
Yeah, I'll offer an approving for consent. Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. I think that's pretty thorough. Thank you.
Is the pedestrian bridge going to be remaining improved? Is there going to be any changes with that?
Our goal is to take the graffiti off that's been noted there, and there's a leaning fence along the pedestrian walkway, to take that fence down and replace that fence along with the deteriorated sidewalk. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit on the log riffles, Rob?
Right, and also we're planning to improve some safety there. There's a large 9.5-foot storm culvert with a degraded grate on it, so kids are able to get in there, and that's going to be replaced. Graffiti's going to be removed from the concrete surface as well, so beautification as well as naturalization. The concrete channel that's currently being flanked and eroded is going to be replaced with natural gravel materials and native vegetation along that corridor, and some of the invasive shrubs removed. So it'll be a real aesthetic amenity for the residents there. And also we are continuing to look at other funding sources. We've talked to private funding sources, and we're looking at other grants to help potentially expand this in the upcoming years.
Awesome. Mr. Donovan?
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd just like to note, thanks to the engineering department, you continue to tackle some of these infrastructure issues, first with Whispering Willows and now over here, and help alleviate some stress for the residents. And I know Solar Construction does a really good job. They're doing the current job right over there at Whispering Willows. So looking forward to getting this solved as well. Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. Thanks, Mr. President.
Okay. We have an approving for consent on this? Thank you, sir. Is there any audience communication tonight? I see none. I think we can safely show 7 from the council. Good night, Livonia. Thank you. Be well.
Why not?
Oh, I'm good with that bridge getting cleaned up.